I'm Todd Anslinger, the Industrial IoT Center of Excellence lead for Chevron, and wanted to go through pub/sub saving system configuration time. But I first want to start with, I need everyone to look right there. Okay, because I want you to forget what you know about SCADA systems for at least the next 15 minutes or 16 minutes, whatever it takes me. So, and if I ask you a question, if you haven't been doing pole response SCADA for the last 25, 30 years like me, how would you want it to work? Okay, so think about how do I want it to work? So I'm going to make a correlation to printers. You know, printers now at your house, you plug it in, hook it up to your Wi-Fi access point, you're done, right? 10 years ago, we had to download the driver, put it in our computer, put the software, create a TCP port, put the IP address, all this stuff. And we still didn't say, okay, I want to get the level of my blue ink, so that's 40,001. Okay, the level of my yellow. No, we didn't even have to do that, right? So it's kind of ridiculous that I would even say that. So just like also your phone too, if you want to give your son or daughter a phone, I use iPhone, you just put in your iTunes address, say, Henry's my child, boom, done. You know, you don't have to go into find my iPhone and say, okay, I want to link his battery voltage to 40,001, his GPS coordinates 40,003. No, that's ridiculous that I would even say that, right? So why are we still doing that with our control systems? Okay, now I know you're going to say, Todd, that's not fair. That's a standard device. So yes, you're right. I'm talking about standard facilities here, okay? I'm not talking about your highly complex, large facilities. So, but technology aside, we always have to start, we can't push technology for technology, so we have to start with the business problem, right? So what's our business problem? So in our unconventional plays, we are commissioning a new facility about once every week throughout the year, okay? So, and of course, there's costs and time associated with all those stuff, plus we're doing a lot of property swaps to gain advantage of physical areas. So a lot of things going on in our Permian Basin. So, and again, we're talking about cookie cutter stuff, standard facilities, same facility week after week, maybe a tank or two different, depending on water production, but we're talking about standard facilities here. So what are the challenges? Well, the big challenge is HR said, okay, we're going to double the number of facilities in a year's time, but you can only add 30% more headcount. So that puts a big constraint because you had a headcount for a reason, because that's how many people you needed to support those facilities, right? So now we got to do more with less. Okay, I'm sure we've all heard that. So what are the things that we have to add for a facility? This is one of our standard facilities. Of course, PLC, touchscreen integration, control room graphics. We use Pi for our historian. And then our decision support center or integrated operations center, whatever you call it, that looks over multiple areas, those graphics. And then, of course, being that you have to integrate it, check the links to make sure we rule out any human errors, we've got to do those things in series. So here's kind of a picture about that. If you think about, sometimes we have in-house people that do it, sometimes we have contractors do it. So think about it, you've got to do the PLC programming first, touchscreen integration, control room HMI, which, yeah, it goes back there. I just made that because people I talk to don't always understand that. But and then you kick it over into Pi, go through your firewall to get to the DSC, and then go through a firewall again. And then, there may be some things where we're getting stuff into business systems where we're doing flat file passing back and forth. So think about all those arrows as different integration points. That's a lot of different points that you have to have people do in series and follow a process, right? There's almost a different person for every arrow, except for your Pi administrator. And then to go through, commissioning a facility, the stuff that's in front of this is all of the engineering drawings, the wiring stuff. It takes 6 weeks to go from starting with engineering drawings to commissioning, right? So if you think about that in the 1 week or one facility per week, you've got one's in the 1 week and one's in the number two, different spots all along that 6 weeks. You got stuff happening that can't be stopped. So let's look at what our SCADA system looks like now. And this is probably typical for everyone. You've got your SCADA host, pulling your different PLCs, different protocols, have a firewall or two in our case. And then you've got your SCADA host that feeds your information up into your business systems, right? Whether it's CMMS or SAP, that type of thing. So, okay, you're saying, okay, Todd, that's easy. Make a connection to your SCADA system, to your business system, that's fine. Now, when you get here, this right here you've got 6 different SCADA hosts going to all of your different business systems. So what's that look like when you have to make a one-to-one relationship to all of those? That turns into spaghetti pretty fast. Okay, I know some of our wiring panels in the field are bad, but this is bad from a digital standpoint. And this isn't even, if you even say, oh, well, that's not even too bad. This is 6 SCADA hosts here. We have one business unit that has 56 different SCADA hosts, and then we have 50 business units within Chevron. So imagine that as far as scalability and manageability. It's bad when you have to make one-to-one relationships for all of those different things. So if we want to decouple our devices, our SCADA systems from being that one point of contact and you have to do all the manual connections, we can start with what we have and just kind of re-architect it just a little bit. So here you would put the broker in the middle, make that your source of record, and you have your devices in the field. If our pub sub native, that's great. Push it up to there. And now anything here, if you have old PLCs, which we have a lot of those too, you may have to put an edge device there that will pull them and then push it up. But once you get it into here, and I'm not saying this is how the network architecture would look, but it turns your SCADA host, instead of it being the middle of everything, it's still a needed component because you've got a control from it, right? But you push it up once, and if you have, because it's going to subscribe to everything, right? You have some business systems that say, hey, I want to subscribe to pumps. And so when it sees a pump show up, it'll grab that and say, okay, I need to put that in my CMMS, automatically apply your PM maintenance to it. So anyway, so that's kind of how it would look if you did a broker. So now another thing that contributes to the oil and gas upstream portion of it is our SCADA radio networks. It's not like being all confined in a plant where you've got fiber and you're talking, 100 or 1 gig. We've got some sites that have slow Ethernet radios, and they're 3 megabit per second or less. And that's an issue because when someone says, okay, you're pulling everything once an hour, but we want these water sites that could have spills or oil sites, we want those to be pulled more frequently. Well, then you got to change all the EFMs to pull every 4 hours and then change these to pull every 10 minutes. Okay, so that's one issue. And then if you have, depending on how your field looks, your office may be 4 hours from the farthest site you have away. And if you're commissioning something and you get out there and say, hey, something's wrong, and you look in the logic, I need to change the logic. You got to either drive 4 hours out there, or if the 3 megabits per second is when I was in control systems, that's what I had to have to maintain connectivity to a PLC to make the change. I would have to shut down our polling system and just make the connection there and add a branch or whatever to make that change. So that's kind of prompted some business units that say, hey, we need to upgrade our radio systems. Well, we wouldn't necessarily need to do that if we were doing this here. So talked about that, and of course, sometimes we share a pipeline with Wi-Fi, corporate Wi-Fi and stuff. But the thing is with those radio systems, either due to frequency interference or path interference or distance we're talking, we get a lot of dropouts. So when you have engineers that are looking at trends and they see no data, that kind of makes them upset. So that's where this can kind of help us here. So what helps oil and gas with pub sub is that you're probably familiar with it. You only send the numbers that change. So what does that do? That allows us to use these large objects that are maintained by vendors that we couldn't use before. Because a lot of times you have, one tank level or something, and all the points surrounded with that, you have 100 different points. But your high level, your low, set points, alarms, PID loop tuning parameters, they don't change very often. So you can have something that's going to report 100 items one time, and then just your level sends up, right? So that frees up our radio systems, that make our slow radio systems. Now we can keep those. Store and forward, that's a big piece too. It can store and forward in the software. So if you lose that radio connection, you won't have a gap in your data. So from that standpoint alone, your engineer is going to be like, oh, great. Or operations will be like, great, we need this. And then also, I'm going to show you about this reduction of integration time from the research we did. And then the other thing that, especially where we're doing a lot of property swaps, if we had all of the upstream producers use the same protocol, let's say, it would be a matter of when we buy new facilities or we swap facilities, we have to have an operator drive there once or twice a day to make sure everything looks good because it's not on our SCADA system, right? Because we want to get our Chevron system on that facility. If we had everyone using the same thing, we would just have to spin up a new broker because their objects aren't going to be our standard objects, right? Point it to that broker, and we've got information going to the broker in a matter of minutes. So that would be a big help to us. So what observations did we make? We took basically 3 different setups. Okay, so we have a vendor 1 PLC with their touchscreen, with a different vendor's HMI, with OSI Pi, since that's our standard. Then we took a single vendor that has all PLC, touchscreen, HMI, historian to Pi, and then we did a publisher-subscriber solution. So here's kind of the architecture, your typical architecture. I'm sure most of you are familiar with Purdue model level, so go Boilermakers. And then also the pub sub with a broker here and a broker up here that kind of helps facilitate both the control system and the business side. So what we did is we took a time measurement. We just took a stopwatch, and we didn't configure a whole greenfield facility. We kind of took some liberties of doing some extrapolation of just adding a tank object in an existing PLC, and then the touchscreen, the control room graphics. How long did it take to do all of that? And then we did it with people that's their job. So they're specialists, and they do that. So in the competitor PLC HMI setup, it took 22 minutes to add that tank object and then proliferate it all through the system. With a single vertical vendor, you think you should be able to take advantage of some common database. So that took about half the time of the first one. And then publisher subscriber was really add the tank object, link the 4 to 20 milliamp signal into it, and then hit save. Going online with the PLC, going offline, all that stuff taken into account. So 20% of what it took to do the integration before. So if you think about, we can't take that 6 weeks and just take 20% of that because some of that's just testing out the I/O, right? But a serious reduction in time is what that could give us. So talking about publisher subscriber, all pub sub isn't the same. So the things that we're focusing on is we're focusing on Sparkplug for these reasons here. And the big reasons are it's got a birth and death certificate, which that gives us session awareness. And if you are an upstream operator and you're operating, you know that you have to have connectivity to your PLC or else bad things happen. I've been a part of some things where the operator, the screens that were developed just had the tank level on it. And they looked at the screens, several times a day. Oh, it's at 10 feet. We're fine. Until the next day they get a call saying, hey, you got some liquid running down the tank here because we weren't connected to the PLC. So that session awareness is vitally important. And then also Sparkplug gives us the ability to do the topic namespace to where you can have, Chevron.upstream, North America, Midland Basin, whatever. That can all be contained in the tag name easily that help you direct it where it goes once it gets to the broker or the cloud. And you don't have to build that into the JSON script because we don't want to make everyone be a JSON programmer, right? So it gives us that option to do that. And then also it's been given to Eclipse Foundation to manage it from an open standard standpoint. Because when you have vendors, like we're still working with our strategic alliances to say, hey, will you build this in? They want to know that it's available for everyone. It's not just a proprietary thing, and how many people are looking at it. What's it going to bring me to the bottom line from a money standpoint? And then, of course, it's far along in its development, and there's several vendors that have Sparkplug compliant PLC cards and edge devices. So to summarize all this, PubSub is good. for oil and gas because it cuts your integration time significantly. Additions and changes can be made at the PLC level, and they just bubble up to your PCN and your business systems. You can use only 15%. There's been lots of studies done on pub/sub versus different protocols, and I'm not going to go through that, but 15% of what you were using is actually a little bit high. But you use your radio bandwidth a lot less. And then, of course, if you're using it for operation, you have to have session awareness to make sure you're not running blind, because we don't want to have an environmental event. So thank you.